Hi all YouTube, and welcome to another episode of On the Road Tuning with me, ACDodd. This time I'm going to do a fueling deep dive. Let's get stuck in. Okay, another nice Mini. This time I'm down in Weston-super-Mare and we got this nice little road racer. Although having looked inside, it's more of a road cruiser, which is lovely. So, and under the bonnet beats the heart of the usual powerhouse of a 998. So, owner doesn't want to appear on the camera, which is fine by me. And he tells me it suffers with the usual ailments. It's just a bit sluggish when you put your foot down. Idles quite smoothly. So, as ever, let's get stuck in and see what we can find. Okay, so it looks like I haven't done much, but I've been through and I've checked the resistance of the coil. We've got an original 0.78 ohm coil, which is for the 65D Digi that's fitted. So that's all the right system. It's got no ballast wire on it, which is fantastic. So that's all wired up correctly. It has got the usual stripped screw on the top, so there's only one screw really holding it on. So I'm leaving that for now because I'm waiting to see if the advance curve's any good or not before we do anything with the distributor, if at all. The vacuum unit's all working, which is excellent. The spark plugs are a set of BP R6s, so I've taken them out and replaced them for a non-resistor set of BP 5 ES plugs, gapped at 35 thou. The plug gap was right on the original plug. So now we're going to look at the timing and take it from there. So, had a look at the timing. We've got 49 degrees with the vacuum. The advance curve is actually pretty good. So, I'm not going to touch the Dizzy today anyway, at least. So, we've got good enough timing for the engine to be where it needs to be today. So, we're going to turn our attention to the carburetor and see how that's fueling. So, this is one of those engines that appears to run really well. So, let's have a look at the mixture reading. And as we can see, we got far too rich at idle. So let's come back and have a look what we got across the rev range. You can see the rev counter on the right. Way too rich at 2000. Just about right at 3000. Way too lean at 4. And way too lean at 5, in fact even leaner. So what somebody's done here is they've turned the mixer screw to try and get the car to run best. And actually what they've done is they've got it running right at 3000, but it's way too rich below that, and then it's way too lean above that, and that's because the needle profile's not right. So what we're going to do now is I'll just lean it off. And then we'll see what the difference is. Okay, so let's just put that into a nice little graph so we can see what's going on. So we've all seen my graphs before, so let's just put that up on the screen, up on the whiteboard there. So if we call this on the side there, that's richer, that is leaner. And then here, we'll call this stoichiometry. All right. So what we've actually got here is a fueling curve, which is pretty typical. So what somebody's done is they've installed this in an engine and they set the mixture about here. So at idle, we're about this position. Okay, and then as we increase the revs, we start to lean out. So, for example, at about, let's just put some RPM increments there. Idle, 2000, 3000, 4000, and 5000. Okay. So if we can see that graph, we can then obviously put our markings where we need them to be. So actually what we've actually got is at 2000 we are still rich, so we're there. At 3,000, we're just about where we would want it to be. At 4,000, we are much too lean, and at 5,000, we're not quite the same leanness, but definitely leaner. So our fueling curve does that, okay? As we can see, the only point on that rev range that is actually correct is at 3,000. So what somebody's done is they've turned the mixture screw. And what the mixture screw does is basically skew this line. So effectively, this may have been here before, but when you set the mixture to be lean enough to pass emissions here, that probably would have tracked something along that sort of line. Okay, so by turning the mixture nut there, if we wind the mixture nut leaner to bring that point down to where we would be to pass an MOT emission, for example, in the UK, we would then produce our fueling curve that is much too lean, okay? And the problem with that is, obviously, anything above idle, the car drives terribly, all right? So, you know, what somebody's done here is just turn the mixture nut up, okay, to get a bit more fuel. So the car drives nicely here up to 3,000, and then it becomes too lean after that. So the mistake that people make here is that they believe that turning the mixer screw will make the engine drive properly and fuel properly, and that's not actually the case. As you can see, what happens when you turn the mixer screw is the whole thing doesn't move. So you're not moving the whole line. What you're doing is you're moving part of the line, so you're changing the angle of the line, for example, and that's actually what's happened. So what we'll do now, we'll go back to the video and you can see that in practice. Okay, so we are back idling and we're lean now, and that's roughly where we should be. So let's see what that's done to the fueling. So at 2,000 we're about basically right, which is good. Now we're too lean at 3. Much too lean at 4. And much too lean at 5. So the reason why I wanted to show you that is that turning the mixer screw affects the fueling across the rev range, which is what people don't realise, but it affects it in such a way that it's detrimental. So, you know, it has to be set there for legal reasons, okay? So we have to make sure that that runs to pass emissions testing. But the point is, the needle is not giving the fueling correct across the rev range. So what we're now going to do is look at the needle, and we're going to change the needle or reprofile it to get us the fueling we want. Okay, so we run the clip there. Let's see how good my prediction was. So as we can see, we turned the mixture down, so it was about 0.9596 at idle. But actually, we was just about right. So we was actually a little bit richer. So we was there. Yeah. And then at 3,000, we were about where I predicted. 4,000, we were about where I predicted, and 5,000 we were about where I predicted. So that's actually what happened. Okay, so the reason why I did that is because I just wanted to show you that turning that mixer screw doesn't do what you think it does. Okay, and it's had an effect on that fueling curve, but it's not the effect that you want. All right, so in actual fact, it was still good. In fact, it got ever so slightly richer at 2,000 from idle. Okay, and that's because the carburetor doesn't work how you think it does. All right, so what we're now going to do is we're now going to look at how we can change that fueling curve so that we can fuel the engine properly. Now, bearing in mind, there's a few other things that I want to put on there. So if we say, you know, the maximum power point is about 0.85, okay? What we don't want to do is we don't want to set the fueling anywhere near there, anywhere around part throttle running, because that's way too rich. So in reality, if we say 0.9, okay, would be somewhere where we would consider to be our limit, okay. So I'll just draw that across there. Now, when you're running stoichiometry or on this line, any more fuel that you add adds to wear in the engine, okay. So obviously if you're here, that's not as much wear as you'll get if you're up here. So for a road engine at part throttle only, you want to be running as close to the stoichiometry line as you can ignite to be able to get that engine to fuel properly and to last a very long time. So what we're actually trying to do here is get a fueling curve that will run from idle all the way across, okay. Now in the UK, we've got MOT limits, and on this particular car, I think we're running at, it's got to be below 3.5% CO, so that's about 0.9. So in reality, the idle mixture needs to be this side of that 0.9 line in order to pass that MOT. As you can see, originally we was way above that pass line, so that's illegal. And in the UK, if you get stopped by the Environment Agency, they could actually stop you driving your car and give you a very large fine. All right, so that is not the way to adjust it. There are loads of garages and people who run businesses who think they're adjusting your fueling by turning the mixer screw. They're not. All they're doing is giving you potentially an illegal car to be able to drive on the road. So passing emissions is all about getting that fueling curve within that window. So let's carry on watching the video and see how I achieve that. Right, so the original needle's on the left, that was an ADU. Then we tried an AAE, that was too rich, low revs. We tried an ABD, that was still too rich at low revs. Then I tried an AAU, that was still too rich at low revs. So at this point I realised we got a worn carb. So what I then had to do was to do a little bit of jiggery pokery with lost motion. So I adjusted the lost motion on the damper, and I've leaned off the low RPM points on the needle, which is excellent. Now I can modify that AAF to get us the fueling we want. And sorry, AAU needle. The AAU is usually much too lean, but in this particular case it was actually a little bit too rich, but I've been able to adjust the lost motion point on the damper, and I've successfully leaned that off. So now we're a bit lean, just at 3, lean at 4 and 5. So I'm just going to adjust that, and we'll see where we are. Okay, we've been having a few problems with the carburetor wear, but I've got the needle somewhere near right, so let's have a look at that. That's idling. Nice, reasonably lean mix. $2,000, lovely. Beautiful. $4,000, lovely. Perfect. As we can see there, that fueling's not too bad. How did I do? Well, as we can see there, we've got a nice lean idle, okay. We go a touch richer, so we are probably here, yeah, at 2,000, but then at sort of 3,000, we're there. At 4,000 we go ever so slightly lean, and at 5,000 we're back to there. So you can see with our modified curve, fueling curve, the engine has now got sufficient fuel to run cleanly, and not only run cleanly, you get a full burn. That means you get full power and you burn everything in the cylinder, which means you get the most efficiency out of that engine. Now, if I was given more time, and perhaps, as you heard me say, the carburetor was playing up, so effectively these lines were moving up and down due to the wear in the carburetor, but when it was behaving, that was the fueling line that we ended up with. So you might think this is a bit lean, but actually 1.02 with that high power ignition means we were still able to burn that fuel mix off, which is what we need. So as you can see, all these other lines, right, give a terrible fueling curve. But once we actually find a needle that's close, and then we hand modify it, we're able to get a fueling curve which fuels that engine all the way across the rev range. And that's only possible due to the number of needles being produced, usually by modifications, because in some of these cases you're not even talking the thousandths of an inch off the needle. It's more like a few tenths of a thou to get those changes to happen. And of course, you also have to understand where on that needle you need to take them off from. Again, that's all covered when people purchase my training, which is a 2-day course, which I do for people in the trade who want to learn how to tune SU carburetors, whether that be at static tuning, as I'm doing here, or on a dyno. Okay, so tuning's done. In the end, all we needed was a set of plugs. I take 3 degrees off the timing. The distributor's all working reasonably well. Vacuum unit's all working. Carburetor, unfortunately, is not really holding the fuel in perfectly, so it keeps going rich. So obviously, it's 450 quid for a carb on top of the tune, which is not a plan. So in reality, what I've done is I've tuned it the best I can, and I've obviously told the owner that carburetor wise, you know, next year let's fit a new one. But what I have done is massively change the fueling, which obviously you would have seen on the video. So this engine runs really strong. So what we're going to do now is send him out, and hopefully he'll be very happy. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that little deep dive there. I thought I would add a little bit more information to the tune. That was a good example of a car when I come out to one, and it's got a standard needle in it, which doesn't fuel properly for the setup, and obviously people's attempts to turn in the screw to try and make it work. The other thing is there's a few things in there which won't ever come out on videos, and that's because I cover them in my training, which is paid for. So I don't give all my secrets out on these videos, but what I'm trying to do is educate people so that at least you can understand that there's more to it than just turning the screw, okay? And turning the screw doesn't achieve what you think it does. And that also goes to professionals as well, because there's a lot of you out there who like turning screws and thinking you're solving the problem. In actual fact, you're in some cases ruining people's cars. So all I will say is if anybody does want training, I do provide a 2-day course for learning how to tune SUs, make custom needles, and all the you know, the intricacies of hand modification of these things to get them right. But the training is quite expensive, so it's not the sort of thing that most privateers go for. It's the sort of thing that businesses invest in. Whether you do static tuning without a rolling road or you do tuning with a rolling road, I can cater for all those. So the most important thing to understand here is there is definitely more to it than what it first looks like. Anyway, with that being said, hopefully you enjoyed that episode and learned something out of it. And as ever, please like, subscribe and share, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you very much.